Guys, welcome to Health for ADV. With us, I've got a special guest, as I had promised. This is Corey Idrogo, and he is a chiropractor that I have used for several years now, and we're going to go over some riding postures and some different exercises that you can do. We all know that we want to stay on the bike longer. We want to have more fun on it. We want to come back and not be wiped out. And there's a lot of things that you can do with your back, because we all recognize there are different issues that we face on motorcycles when we're trying to stay longer and enjoy the bike longer. And there's a lot of exercises that Corey's going to help us with to help keep us on the bike longer. So check this out. All right, ready?
Yeah. All right, so David's an avid rider who rides a lot, and he has a lot of people that he rides with that have this complaints of just after a period of time, it's just their body wants to get out of them on the bike. And a lot of it does come down to posture. A lot of times I work with people that work at a desk all the time that are sitting down in a stationary position for long periods of time because their job requires that. Riding is very similar, except we have to add another variable there, vibration. A lot of research out there as to the detriments effects of vibration for long periods of time, and also sitting in a vibratory position, looking at truck drivers especially. So we're going to try to work to find what's the ideal posture for him. And there's no absolutes, so we're going to go through a couple different variations you can look to try out to find the ideal posture for you. And then we'll go over some exercises after this as to what we could do to help when we're off the bike, between maybe resting between rides, then what we can do to help continue to ride for longer periods of time.
Okay. And bear in mind, depending on the type of bike that you have, there are going to be different variables that more at play than the ones that like on this bike, because of the riding position that I have on this bike. So
Right.
Just keep that in mind.
Right, yeah, so we talk about like a sport bike would be a little bit different.
Totally.
Or you got the crotch rocket,
Right.
and the cruiser, right? So we're going to go over the specifications of this bike, but also can use these applied to other bikes as well. It's mainly posture we're going to talk about here. So the first thing we talk about is how should we be sitting? Now, we have to find that neutral position for our pelvis, okay? The cool thing about this bike is David was showing me some different variations you can do with moving the seat around. We got to find what's proper for him. If the seat in the front is really tilted up and we're kind of leaning back, we're going to posterior tilt our pelvis backwards, which puts our disc and our spine, our lower back, more at jeopardy for injury. So we want to find a position where we're kind of in between, not so far back, but not so far where we're arching our back and rounding our back. A lot of positions you see here. So what I want him to do is, while sitting on the bike, play around with seat position, but let's find where a neutral posture would be for his spine. So rounding your back all the way to the far end. Good. So we know there's the end range in the back side. Now let's round all the way the other way. Good. Both of those don't probably feel good, but we're going to find a middle point between those two positions. Right there. Now we have a middle point between those two end ranges where we're in the middle. We can start with that and then try to vary from there what feels the most comfortable, going forward more or backwards more, because every spine is a little bit different. All right. When we're in this position too, we can almost take our hand off the handles and feel our back muscles. We want to make sure that they're not super tense. What I generally notice people that have postural issues with back pain is those muscles will get super tense. We may sit on the bike where we're kind of rounded forward or slunched over. So now we're not using the structure of our spine to help us. We're relying on these muscles that get really tight and overworked and begin to vice down and compress the spine. So we want to find where those back muscles are at, and we're going to do some exercises to kind of check these if they're turning off or turning on. We want them to turn more off and get more support around the entire core rather than just these back muscles of here and below our shoulder blades. So we're going to keep a hand on there the entire time. Go put one hand on your back for me, right in those muscles there. Good. So we're starting from the bottom, working our way up from the foundation. So we've worked on the pelvis, we found that neutral position for the spine. Now the shoulder blades. A lot of times when we start to ride, we may start to hunch forward or overarch back. We're going to try to find that middle ground. And it really comes down to getting engagement here and getting engagement of this thing called the trapezius muscle, especially the lower portions. So what I'm doing at him is I'm pressing his shoulder blade up towards the ceiling, which generally happens when we hunch forward. Go ahead and press back down against me. Good. So now he's actively engaging 100%, pushing down. We don't need 100%, but we can get about 50% there. So go ahead and just relax that tension a little bit. Good, good. That's what we're looking for. It's about 50%. We're not aggressively pushing down the entire time and not allowing him to hunch over, but that middle ground between the two. And if we activate 100%, we're going to get tired and go back to the slouching posture very quickly. So find somewhere you can start to create tension, pushing those shoulder blades down. We have a neutral spine here. Now the last thing too is the tummy. All right, and I always tell people, how do we engage what are we doing to look for our tummy to loosen up our back muscles and engage the whole core? I would say, like, if you're at the beach, right? You're going to beach week for bike week, right? Or something, you're gonna take your shirt off, someone takes a photo, what do? You slightly suck in a little bit. You don't really suck in, but you suck in a little bit to create a little bit of tension in the tummy. By doing all three of these things for our posture, it's going to help us find an ideal position for our low back and mid back area. Does that make sense? Pretty easy.
That's very true. I mean, because I've incorporated a bunch of different exercises recently because I'm riding more and I want to, I don't want to be wiped out.
Sure.
And sit-ups have been massive, as well as reverse, like when you're laying on the floor and you're going up.
Yes,
to work those muscles as well. Because what I was realizing, I was only working my abs and I wasn't actually working the back, and so I had to work both sides. And so, but by doing the sit-ups more often, I find myself keeping myself more firm in the core more often.
Yeah, and we'll try some exercises that are like sit-ups, very similar, that I like, that are kind of turns that notch up a little bit more for safety and for improvement of how to get a better contraction out of the sit-up, and some back extension exercises too. When we get done here, I'll go over some cool exercises you can do. Maybe not on the road, but when you're done, maybe at night riding, to help build more integrity and more strength in that core rather than just all the back muscles of that bad posture. Now, arm position too. A lot of times people's hands start to go numb or legs start to go numb. Now, in regards to the legs first, the legs, a lot of it comes down to we're sitting on a bike, it's vibrating, we're not getting much muscle contraction here. Blood starts to pool, it gets pumped in through the arteries and pools in the legs. And the veins are used to help pump the blood back to the heart. So when we contract our muscles, it pumps back to the heart. I always say, like, the guy that may fall over at a wedding, or the lady that falls over at a wedding, they're probably locking their knees out, not contracting muscles. So the more we can get into positions where we're comfortable and safe, but can fidget and move our legs or squeeze our quads and kind of move them, the more we're going to get that blood to pump out of the muscle back into the veins. Yeah, and changing positions as well. Getting in different positions where we can get some activation of our legs from time to time, maybe some little fidgeting. That's going to help you go a long way over time. And your body likes good posture, but your body likes movement even more. So the more we can move, the better for our spine and for our legs and for our body as well. Now, hand position as well. We're going back to hand position. A lot of times, like I said, it's going to be easy to want to continue to pull down on this and over contract this area. Okay, we got to find, once again, that middle ground where we're looking for 100% and then go into that slouched over posture. Yeah, we're going to find that middle ground between the two of those where we have that nice active balance of the two. Now, we won't be able to hold this for long, but we can, once again, go back to movement. Like I like the stretches you do intermittently throughout the bike. This is kind of like we call a cat camel. Okay, like I said, those muscles are contracting down, compressing the spine. So what he's doing now is moving back and forth through his rib cage, which is supposed to be very mobile. This is we call a cat camel or a cat cow, because he's making his back rounded like a cat and then arched like a cow's mid back. By doing this a good 30 times, just not holding it, but going back and forth, you may get some what we call pops and clicks, or like a cavitation with an adjustment for a chiropractor, but we're getting mobilization. We're getting that spine to move, which it likes, once again, more than just proper posture.
All right, now I don't know if this is good or not, and you'll have to tell me if it is, but a lot of times I'm going down the road and I've got the cruise control set, which luckily this bike has it, and you can just reach back and the wind catches your hands, and then it just does a nice pop. I do that all the time. So
I would say it's okay.
I can't very well recommend that, officially, but it works real well.
So mobilizations are bad, but if we're grossly manipulating and forcing it, we got a problem. Popping is okay in certain circumstances. Now, if we're grossly manipulating and you're really whipping those shoulders back, or you're trying to twist your neck around like a vice, probably something wrong. We need to get evaluated first, because you may be making more harm than good. All right. So, but if it's happening on its own when you do this type of movement, safety first, right? Taking the hands off the handlebars may be a little bit challenging for maybe some novice riders, but I'm going to go over a great stretch for this as well. Because this is something I was thinking about, is these nerves from sitting for long periods of time get kind of contract in those little canals, like the hamstring shortens, the arms get real tight with the vibration, we get tightness across the front of all this muscle called the frontal line here. All right, and we got to work on loosening those up between rides to help take tension off those nerves, which we'll go over in some cool exercises you can do when you stop. Okay, so lastly, we worked through the core, we worked through posture, the pelvis, the legs, and how they need to move along with the arms. Now we got to talk about the last thing we got going on here, this 10 to 12 pound bowling ball on top of our shoulders, we call a head, right? This plays a big role when it comes to that back muscles as well. And you can also go back to investigating this, because the more I let my head trail forward, the more it stacks the back muscles and irritates the spine and the lower back. So the more we let that head start to sink forward, that ear going way in front of our shoulders, we add a helmet to that, even more load and more force. A lot of great studies looking at helmet wear and pressure on the neck and the lower back, with looking at jet fighters, looking at pilots and jet fighters, a lot of the force they deal with the head position. So what we want to look for in this, and we can go back to putting our hands in this muscle again, is we've set the tummy, we've set the shoulder blades, now the position of the head. The more if we take that head straight back, it's not so much like a bending back, but like straight back over our shoulders, we'll start to feel maybe changes in those muscles as well. You'll feel a big change in the tension you feel in the lower back. That's why necks can play a role in lower back discomfort. So we want to find where we feel comfortable, trying to get that ear over top of our shoulder. And when we feel this muscle tension start to release. Now, the cool thing about this little thing is that we can go back to checking where we generally sit when we have back problems. So go ahead and hunch forward, let your head fall forward. You'll feel that tension come right back. And then you can go back to doing the good posture again, and you'll feel them shut right back off. It's a way to understand if you're doing it correctly. That's why I love this little exercise I give people at work. And it works really well for bike riders as well. So ear needs to be over the shoulders, what we're looking for as far as proper posture. Okay.
A secondary issue that we face on bikes is obviously wind. The wind is also hitting your helmet, and of course windscreens can play a big role in deflecting that wind, getting yourself out of the turbulence. But that wind, now when you hold your head forward, your back muscles are being pulled, but now you've got wind pressing yourself back, and so depending on your bike, you could actually have more pressure pushing your head forward to keep it in position than the other. So it really depends on the bike, and so again, windscreens, if you're looking to go on long rides, your windscreen or the type of helmet that you have that's more aerodynamic can play a huge role in comfort in the neck, and of course weight makes a huge difference. So the lighter the helmet, the less that you're having to hold up. So it makes a huge difference there as well.
Lastly, while we're here too, while you're talking about that too, like the idea of trying to get, I don't know, this bike does it, but getting lower on the bike in that sports position, a lot of times we want that to happen at the pelvis. We want that back to be at least in a neutral spine position where we're bending through one joint. Yes, exactly. Here we're bending through multiple joints here. You see this is all flexion of all that spine. So all the fluid in our disc is pushing towards the back, which makes it more at jeopardy for injury over time. But if we can move through one joint, being the hip joint, and the spine stays neutral, it's exactly what I talk about with people looking at cell phones. This applies the same way. We can work on good flexibility at the hip joint rather than the spine. Move through one joint rather than many, as I say.
If you notice cafe racers, if you notice Moto GP racers and all of those that are on the really fast bikes, they're, I can't really even mimic that on this one, but their legs are almost like this, and then they're like this. But if you notice, they're usually not like this. They're normally like this. And so that again, like he was saying, keeps that spine in a neutral position, even though, and then the wind pressure actually at that point works in their favor because it helps hold the helmet up. And so
this last little piece is, remember, let's just try to move through one joint rather than many. So I always tell people about hinging at the hip rather than the spine, which leads to more chance of injury. And this applies in the same fashion for being on a bike, or especially like a moto bike, like a sports bike like you were describing.
So there are certain things that we can use as far as equipment are concerned. Obviously, I've got a custom seat on mine. It's actually a very firm seat versus basically the lame seats that are designed to sit on in a showroom, not actually ride on. And so that can make a difference. We could get into a discussion for hours about which seat, because everybody's butt's different, everybody's nerve endings work a little different, and so you have to have the seat that works for you. But having a custom seat can go a long way to comfort on a bike. Another thing, a piece of equipment that I typically use on long rides, I don't ever do it on the local stuff, but really long rides, I will wear compression socks, and they go up to about right here to my upper calf. And what they do, like he was saying, that pooling of blood, what it does is it puts compression on it and helps the veins pump the blood back up, and so you don't have that swelling in the feet and that sort of thing that can really, the older you are, can be really damaging to your body, because you could have potential for clotting and stuff like that, so you don't want that. As you go up the body, we've also got obviously the helmet and the type of helmet that you use and the weight of the helmet. Light helmets aren't cheap. But they go a long way toward neck fatigue and stuff like that. I have as Corey well knows, I have a degenerative disc in my upper, I think it's C3, C4, somewhere in there.
C4, you have some damage like lower areas as well too.
Right. And so I bought the lightest helmet that I can possibly buy, but then neck posture is a huge thing for me, and that's one reason I'm so noticing of it. And of course we work on, we'll have another video that talks about different products that you can use to reduce inflammation, which that's something we'll cover at a later time. But today it's really about the mobility of the back and exercise you can do to do it. So this gives you an idea of what we're looking at, and so we've got another video that's going to be coming soon that's going to explain more about the exercises and mobility of your back, either during the ride, when you get off the bike, what should you do, and then also pre-ride, what kind of exercise workout could you use to keep mobility in that back, abs, things like that, that can kind of prepare you for the ride. So we'll cover that in the next video. Stay tuned.